This is the perfect RIA, in case you didn't know. Bringing you all the strategies to help your business grow. Are you happy? Are you satisfied? Are you hanging on the edge of your seat? Sit back and listen in while you feel the beat, yeah. Another myth bites the dust.
Hey everybody, ever wish that you could get more from this podcast than just Mike and I telling jokes back and forth and making witty comments? Well, great news is that you can. For a select group of advisors, Mike and I will coach you through how to get your practice to the next level. What does that look like? It looks like regular webinars just for our members. It looks like access to templates, systems, processes, marketing materials that we're using day in and day out in our practice. It looks like the value adds that we're doing each calendar quarter. And it looks like the forum, the members only forum, where you can get spot coaching and ask questions to Mike and I directly. So go to theperfectria.com/grow/GROW to get more information from more great resources that are available to our podcast listeners. Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Perfect RIA Podcast. I'm your co-host, Matthew Jarvis, and with me today, special guest, Aaron Walker. Aaron was a coach of mine for several months. In fact, he was one of the few people that I've seen get Micah rocked back on his heels. When we had our very first call, and Aaron, I'm not sure if you remember this, but you said to us, as I remember, you said, hey, gentlemen, if your wife called you right now, would you hang up this call and answer your wife's call? And Mike and I said, no, we wouldn't, because, here we are on this call with you. And you said, well, my wife is more important to me than the two of you. And so if she called, I'm going to hang up this call. And sort of the implied thing was to us was that we didn't think our wives were that important. And so for about a week, we really stewed. We said, who is this Aaron guy? Like, what a bum. And then we realized the wisdom of that. So I'm really excited to have you on the show. You knocked me back on my heels again today, but it's good to see you again, my friend.
That's so good. That's so good. Jarvis, good to see you, man. And I hope if your wife calls, you hang up this podcast interview and take her call. So is that a deal?
I will. I have learned. That is a deal. I have learned since I worked together. But
that's good. That's good.
Let's jump right in, Aaron. We talk a lot about the success of entrepreneurs. We celebrate that. We pat each other on the back. We have lots of money in our bank accounts. We have these great things. But we live often in a very isolated world. I think especially as men, I can't really speak for women in this regard, but we live in this very isolated world except to pat each other on the back. And your mission in life is to fix that, right?
Yeah, let's do this. Let me give you a little context first for those that don't know anything about Aaron Walker or View from the Top or Iron Sharpens Iron Mastermind. Let me give you just a little bit of backdrop for context. So 14 businesses I've been blessed to own over the past 44 years. So I'm encouraged by that, but also it makes me tired too when I say it. It's like, golly, that's a lot of work.
That's a lot, yeah.
But Jarvis, the first 20 years, I spent it in isolation.
Yeah.
Like I didn't want anybody close to me. I didn't want anybody to know I didn't have it all figured out. I didn't want people to know that Robin and I had disagreements and we had problems with our children. Like I didn't want everybody to know that, right? I was private and I had this facade up and I was like, man, I'm not going to let anybody in. And a good buddy of mine that I had been involved in promoting his business invited me to join his mastermind group. And so I went to Robin and I said, hey, you know this guy and he's going to be all up in my face and asking me all these questions and I don't want to join this mastermind group. And she said, well, what is a mastermind group?
Yeah.
I said, I'm not really sure completely. This was 25 years ago. I said, but I know they really get involved in each other's lives. So I went, Jarvis, and I sat on the side for 2 or 3 months, 10 guys in a room, and they start sharing real private things. Like they were talking about situations in their marriage, and then they start talking about cash flow problems and debt problems and problems with their teenage children. And so finally I went home and told Robin, I said, I think they're more messed up than I am. I said, maybe I should be in this group. And so I went in and really started peeling the layers back and saying, I experienced the same situations. I'm a successful businessman. We've had a number of businesses at the time. I said, but the truth is I don't know everything. And there's some things that I could really use help with. So we spent the next 12 years meeting every Wednesday for an hour and a half, and it radically changed my life. So fast forward 13 years ago, I went to the group and said, hey, I'm retiring, like for good this time. Like I'm third time I'd retire, but I said, this time I'm done.
Yeah.
And a good buddy of mine said, what are you going to do now? And I said, nothing. Like I'm going to go down to St. Martin and buy a place and rock myself into an oblivion. And he said, man, you can't do that. He said, you and Robin have been married at that time over 30 years and you've owned a number of companies. And said, you really should encourage and teach other men. And I said, man, I don't want any part of that. I mean, like I'll go in there and try to get more involved in their business than they're involved. And I don't know if I want to do that. And they said, well, at least try it. Well, Jarvis, I tried it, fell in love with it, started doing podcast interviews, and man, God has just blessed us immeasurably. Today we have 15 groups, 150 men, 5 countries around the world.
Wow.
And we're helping change people's lives. And here's the thing that I tell everybody, listen, don't come home with a pocket full of money to a house full of strangers, because that's exactly what I did. And I spent the next few years trying to unravel that and really help my wife understand that I was there for her. I was going to be, number one in her life. Hopefully she would be in mine, and that we could really make this thing work. So I get the privilege now of coaching men all over the world. As you said, got an opportunity to coach you and Micah, and that turned into a friendship relationship as well as a coaching relationship. And so now we have very successful men all over the world that come together in groups of 10. We meet virtually every week, and they're the trusted advisors. They're like your board of directors that you meet with. And the reason it's so important, I'm kind of long-winded here giving you the answer, but I think it's important in this limited time to understand how it works. I went to a coffee shop recently, and young guy there was asking me questions. And I said, hey, I've got a question I want to ask you. And he'd followed me for years.
Sure.
He said, yeah, what is it, Big A? And I said, Robin and I are thinking about buying a condo down in South Florida. And I said, my granddaughter goes to school down there, and I want to get away from the winters, here in Nashville. And what do you think about that? And he thought a minute about it. He goes, I think it'll be a good idea. And I said, well, the condo's $1 million.
Yeah.
It sits right off the beach, and it's a little 2-bedroom and really nice. And he said, yeah, I think you should do it. And Jarvis, I'll be honest with you, I set him up, and I did it on purpose. But I said, listen, you've never met Robin. You don't know anything about my superpowers, my kryptonite, my blind spots, my vision. You don't know anything about my children. You've never met any of my grandchildren. And you sure don't know anything about my finances. And he paused for a second. He said, no, I don't. I said, you really can't help me answer this question, can you? Mm-mm. He said, I really can't. You know what, though, Jarvis? We do that every day. We go to people every day, and we ask them a question, and then we go try to implement what they've said to do, and it fails miserably. And we wonder why. The reason is we have no context. So this is the 25th year I've been involved in a mastermind group every single week, and it's changed my life because they know the answers to all those questions.
Yeah.
They know exactly about my finances, my family, my vision, my superpowers, right? They can help me answer those questions, because you know me long enough now, for a long time. I'm a knucklehead, right? And I've got unique things about me that you would give financial advice to me differently, possibly you would others, because you've got context. And I've really made it my life's mission now to help businessmen, people that are really interested in discovering their faith, people that are really family forward, people that have momentum, people that desire accountability, people that are really trying to make a difference in every area of their life, not just make money. Any of us can teach you how to make money.
Sure.
It's not that hard to make money. What's hard is to live a successful and significant life. And so that's what we're trying to help people accomplish today.
I want to pull on a couple of threads there. And one is that you mentioned changing people's lives. And I feel like that's often a cliched and thrown away term, right? Like everybody, you take this diet and it's going to change your life. Read this book. But when you sit down with another group of men and put everything on the table, and I do this in my mastermind, and I endlessly have advisors reaching out to me saying, hey, how can I start a mastermind? And you're going to talk about iron sharpens iron in a minute in more detail. But when you sit down with a group of other men and you say, here is my profit and loss for my business.
Right.
Here is my net worth statement. Here is my tax return. Here's the fight I got in with my wife. Here is the struggles I have with my kids. Obviously, you have to have a high level of trust to get into that. But then, as you pointed out, Big A, the things that you can get into, right? The advice that I can go and get from Micah and from the other guys in my mastermind is different than any other person, different than my accountant, than my attorney. Because I don't talk to my attorney about, what my fears are. I don't talk to my accountant about what I'm worried about in my business, right? But these guys, we talk about every single thing.
Yep.
There's a companionship, there's a wisdom that comes there that cannot be found anywhere else.
Yeah. Well, see, there's a camaraderie in that group.
Yes, there is.
Because you've got to give trust to get trust. And some people are going to let you down. Some people are going to do, it's like that's the expense and that's the cost of doing business. That's the bad fruit at the supermarket, right? You throw away some things. But the truth is that you can go so much further together than you can alone. We only have one filter. We've only got one life experience. You don't know what you don't know. And when you get in a group that can help you, listen, I've been in so many mastermind meetings with good groups that suck, week after week after week. But then somebody says something and you're like, hold on, Jarvis, what did you just say?
Yeah.
And you say it again and you go, that's the missing piece. Like, that's the thing. I didn't even know that was a thing. Or you're like, hey, you need to meet this guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
The networking that's in there, because you're leveraging all the networking of everybody that's in the group, because there's a level of trust there. Listen, we are really losing out, quite honestly, to a greater degree than we realize until we get in the. Listen, I'm important. I'm not an important guy. I got important things to do.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't do this every week for 25 years if there wasn't great value in it, right? There's other things that I could be doing. These guys have helped me, and I don't want to go back because I think we touched on this maybe a year and a half or 2 years ago.
Yeah.
But I ran over and killed a pedestrian on my way to the office. And if I didn't have my mastermind group around me to walk with me, to help me for months work through that, I'd probably still be in a fetal position under the desk somewhere trying to walk through that. You know, I made some bad choices relationally decades ago and could have lost my marriage if I hadn't had some guys that were walking with me through that. You know, I was a dad to a 16-year-old for the first time, the challenges that I experienced there. You know, I lost my sister 2 years ago to pancreatic cancer. And I'm like, if I didn't have guys around me that had the context for years for me in my life, I just don't know where I would be each and every day. And that's what listen, it wasn't that hard to make money, right? For the first 20 years of my career, it just wasn't that hard. The other stuff is what's so difficult, is how to be a good husband, how to be a great dad, how to manage your finances in a way that, you know, you would be proud to say, I don't have any regrets. It's the way I stewarded the money that I was entrusted with. And then the challenges that come with your relationship. Robin and I will celebrate 44 years in June.
That's amazing.
Yeah, it is, but it's hard.
Yeah, it's work. It's work. Yeah.
You know, you've been married less than a couple of decades, right?
Yeah, 20 years now. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So yeah, it's hard. It's
real hard.
Really hard.
It's work.
Yeah. And then you're juggling, you know, those kids. You got teenage kids and you got kids a little bit older, and then grandkids come along. It's like, man, how do I manage all this? And so we just need people around us that can help us do that. Listen, we talked early on in the interview about, you had mentioned isolation.
Yeah.
For me, isolation is the enemy of excellence. I mean, if we really want to go far in life, we have to get out of isolation. And there's really 4 main reasons that we're in isolation. The first one is fear. We're afraid. Quite honestly, we don't want to say that out loud, but we are afraid. And some of the things that we're afraid of is just the unknown. It's like, I don't know what the outcome's going to be. It's like, I know how bad it is right where I'm at, so I'm not going to change anything. And if I'll stay right there, at least I know how bad it is. But when you talk about scaling your business, and a lot of your clients are scaling their business right now, they don't know what the challenges are ahead of them, right? They've never been there before. And so
never.
And that fear is, you know, even it's rewarding making more money, but that fear can be paralyzing if you're not careful. If you don't have guys that can talk you off the ledge or help you push through that upper limit challenge, or help you really understand, hey, you're going to be okay ultimately, it keeps you in that isolation.
It seems to almost get worse, that isolation, because we sort of tell ourselves like, hey, once I get to X dollars, right, then I won't have these fears anymore. But they don't, they just get bigger, right? Because now you have more money to lose, right? So you think, well, if I only made $500,000 or $1 million or $2 million or now I just have more to lose. And so that fear, that isolation just compounds.
Yeah. Well, then you don't know who to trust, right? You're like, well, now people are just wanting to take advantage of me because I got a little bit more money.
Yeah.
And so, but if you've got a group of guys that you pour into each and every week, day in and day out, and they know everything about you, it's a lot easier to trust those guys that are unbiased.
Yeah.
A lot of people say, well, I've got my business partner, and that's great. And you and Micah have a great relationship. But the truth is, each of you are biased.
Yep. Yeah.
You can't help but be biased, right? And so you need somebody that don't have a dog in the hunt.
Yep.
You need somebody around you that can go, hey, I don't have anything to gain or lose as a result of this advice I'm going to give you. And so, listen, you and Micah do great in your mastermind group, but you, and I'll tell Micah the same, need other people besides each other that you can share things with.
100%.
Here's the truth of the matter, even in a partnership, neither one of you are right or wrong. It's just different. Your relationships are different. Your children are different. Your desires are different. Your vision is different. Your goals are different. Your circumstances are different. Your family imposes different things on you. Neither one are wrong, but they're different. And we need people to help us walk through that. The other thing is The thing that I'm really finding to be prevalent in most businessmen is they have unhealed father wounds. And man, I did a whole series on this at our last live event, and we've just got to really uncover what that is. And I'll be the first to admit it. My dad never told me he loved me, and my dad never said, I'm proud of you.
Wow.
Not one time in my life.
Really?
Now, my dad was a great man. Yeah, but my dad was born back in 1930.
That generation.
Rough
Yeah.
old codger. You know, he didn't have time for all these feelings and all that stuff. But I needed it. I needed my dad to say, I'm proud of you and I love you. And so I spent probably 10, 15 years trying to gain the approval of other people that would say, hey, Big A, I'm proud of you. Oftentimes we'll be isolated because we can't get that. And then finally there's misguided thoughts around self-preservation. We think that if they don't know, right, then I don't have to be vulnerable and be transparent. And
that's right.
You're like, and so I'll just remain right here. I'll just sit right here. And I see guys do this all the time. And we deal with very, very successful people. And they're like, hey, I just don't know who I can trust. And I just can't give this much information out. And I want to encourage you, regardless of who you are, how much you've got, you need people around you that are unbiased, that can give you, they can throw a flag on your BS, right? Because we all can throw it out there. Well, you can't throw a flag on BS if you don't know it's BS. And you don't know it's BS until you spend some time with somebody. And the more time you spend with people, the more they'll relax, the more they'll be vulnerable and transparent. And then you can genuinely help them.
Yeah, boy, there's so many threads to pull on here, Big A. There's one that I want to, you kind of commented on lightly, but I want to pull on this thread just a little bit more to get kind of on the personal side here. You mentioned being married 44 years and that's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of work. Sure. In the romance novels, it's easy. In real life, it's a lot of work. There are not many places you can go as a successful man and talk about like, hey, I've got this struggle with my spouse in a place that's appropriate to have that discussion. And like you said, where it's people that they're solving for the same thing. Like they also want you to have a successful marriage, right? These aren't the kind of people that are saying, well, you need to get a divorce. That's like, you need to be in a group of guys that are saying like, all right, I can be your sounding board. We're not sitting here to complain about your spouse. We're saying, hey, we have this issue. Help me see what's going on here. Help me find a solution and then support me along the way. And again, I know this podcast is about money and it's about your financial planning practice, but your life is your financial planning practice. Like it's all the same thing. And so I think a big benefit, they're inseparable. Yeah. A big benefit of a mastermind, like you're talking about, is to have somewhere you can say like, hey, I have this personal issue, a health issue, a family issue, a kid issue. And I need someone to talk to about this that I trust, that I respect, that knows me.
Yeah. I hesitated on sharing this, but because it is kind of a financial podcast, I will share a couple of things. Some of the guys that were in this group that started originally, first of all, it was Dave Ramsey. You know, whether you like him or don't like him, it was Dave Ramsey. He knows a little bit about finances. And
he does.
So he's the one that invited me to join his group. And Dave and I have been friends for about 30 years. And I was his second sponsor to his show when he started back in the early 90s.
On the radio, just for our younger listeners, like on that radio dial, the original radio, not his internet show, the original radio,
Yeah, the original radio. He was on one station in Nashville, Tennessee. That's where I live, Nashville, Tennessee. In case you couldn't tell from the southern drawl, right? Jarvis is always teasing me about my southern drawl. But so Dave gave me advertising to try him. And so I tried him and fell in love with what he was doing and started. I sponsored his show for 21 years. Wow. And so my point in saying this is if a guy like that, and Dave's done pretty good for himself over the years, right? Yeah. And if a guy like that is willing to invest an hour and a half every single week, guys like Dan Miller, 48 Days to the Work You Love, and numbers of other guys, Jeff Mosley owned INO Records, and, you know, Ken Abraham, one of the most noted ghost authors on the planet. He's written 105 books. Wow. These guys spent an hour and a half every single week for a dozen years. And they're like, hey, this has changed my life. And a lot of people say, well, yeah, if I could be in a group like that, I would be in a group like that also. Well, I want to point out these men weren't then who they are now.
No.
And it's because they were willing to do that in order to be better, in order to hone your focus, because we were very focused and we held each other accountable to the things that we said we were going to do. And then the relationship piece came, and then the networking piece came, and then, you know, it's just the trust came, and you're able to do things with people and do business with people because you've invested the time. You've done the heavy lifting. And so I want to encourage the listeners out there to think, who are your 2 a.m. friends? Who are those people that you can trust, that you're willing to? And you're like, man, there's no way I would go in a group and share all. what is the dangers of not doing it, right? You just sit there and go,
Yeah.
well, I wonder what I am missing. And I hope I'm perking some interest right now in some guys thinking, you know what? If I'm willing to do it and they're willing to do it and we do it week after week, there's got to be some trust built as a result of, and you got to do it slow, Jarvis. You can't do it fast. You can't go in there and just open the books and you can't do that. That would be asinine to do that.
Yeah, there's a process
People
for sure.
got to earn that respect, right? They got to earn that trust, and you earn the respect, and it just takes time. We have really put together a phenomenal framework that has allowed these guys to really focus. And I could go on for hours. I know we don't have time today, but telling you of the framework that we've put together where we do a program called Come As You Will Be, to where you really focus on your personal, professional, relational, financial, and spiritual aspirations in every area of your life. There's an accountability piece that really walks you through, like, hey, I said I was going to do this week. We had two guys that joined our mastermind 5 years ago. They were brothers, and one of them was working in finance, and the other guy was a state trooper. And they joined the group, and they wanted to buy rental houses. So they bought 3 rental houses, and they thought, man, I would love to do this full time. And so their mastermind group taught them how to scale. We celebrated back in October of 2023, where they just bought their 500th house.
500th, holy smokes.
Yeah, they did that because their group taught them how to scale. And now they're buying about $1,500,000 a month in rental property.
It's incredible.
And they've gotten investors as a result of that, being in the groups. And there's success story after success story. And let me just tell you this, it's because guys are focused weekly.
Yep.
A lot of guys go, well, I meet with my mastermind group once a quarter, or we get together twice a year. I don't know about you, but a lot of life happens for me weekly. And with technology as radical as it is today, and AI is taking over the world, you're like, man, we better be keeping up with what's going on. And so we sharpen each other every single week. So yeah, there's all kind of programs that we do. We get together twice a year in person just to give that personal touch. Yeah, man, it's a game changer. Like I said, that's why I wanted to come here today and just share a little bit more about why it's so important.
I love it. I love it. Aaron, in a couple of minutes we have left, can you walk us through how that 90 minutes might look, right? So like you said, you're making a significant commitment to that time, right? But obviously it's paid in space, but how, just kind of a quick rundown, how does that 90 minutes look?
Yeah, it's 60 minutes, not 90, but primarily what it is you said something earlier I think is really important. Most people don't have a place that you can share a win.
Yeah.
You just can't. You can't do it with your family, and you can't do it with your colleagues. Like, they don't want to hear that. They think you're boasting. We celebrate wins. We're like, man, we're for you. Like, we're on the journey with you, so we're able to share. So a couple of guys will share big wins, and then we'll go straight to man in the middle. Every 5 weeks, you're the man in the middle. And so you're really laying it out, what it is that you're dealing with, whether it's personal or professional, whatever area of your life that you want focused on.
Yeah.
You'll give us kind of a synopsis in the platform that we host it on. You can say, hey, these are the things that I want to talk about, or we have text thread that goes out. And you're like, hey, these are the things I want to talk about. And we really just focus on you. We do what's called a full cup, where we're always sharing tech tips or books or resources or connections or podcasts or whatever it is that you want to share. But it's not just the 1 hour, Jarvis. It's the weekly interactions. It's the guys now that are going in business together. There's people that are doing business with each other. We actually have a lot of financial advisors that have some significant portfolios that they're managing for people that are in our organization. We had a guy a few weeks ago that had joined, and he said, I've got about 500,000 under management right now, and I want to get to $1 billion. And we talked through why he wanted to get to $1 billion under management.
Yeah.
And so just helping him really understand, what are the costs going to be associated with that? What are the ages of your children? How much time do you want to spend? And then he starts thinking, well, maybe I'm pretty good right now, or maybe I do want to go there. Maybe I want to go slower. It's just a safe place to help people understand what it is they're trying to accomplish. And the bigger question is why they're wanting to accomplish it.
It is, yeah.
And when I first asked him that question, he said, well, it just seems aspirational. And I said, well, yeah, but here are going to be some of the costs that's associated with you. It's just having a sounding board of trusted advisors every single week to kind of play the guardrails in your life, trying to keep you on focus.
I love it. No, that's a great format to go with. Well, Aaron, I really appreciate you coming on the show again. And I always appreciate all of your wisdom, both on the show, but then that we get one-on-one. How can our listeners learn more about Iron Sharpens Iron? Of course, they can buy your book on Amazon, View from the Top, right?
Yeah, View from the Top.
View from the Top. I said there's a movie that's called that too. View from the Top. A phenomenal book, by the way. It's on my bookshelf. I really enjoyed it. You talked a lot about the different things throughout your life. But how do they learn more about the Iron Sharpen Irons, the masterminds?
Yeah, I think the easiest way is to go to viewfromthetop.com. And there's an application that will pop up. There's no commitment, but fill out the application. Let's you and I get online and talk for 40 minutes on a Zoom call. Let's really figure out what it is you're trying to accomplish and how we can help you.
I love it. Well, Aaron, it's great to see you as always, my friend. Thank you so much for all that you do. And for our listeners, until next time, happy planning. Hey, before you leave, a quick word from our sponsors. Hey, everybody, I want you to take a quick look around your office, and on your desk, there should be the Retirement Tax Services Desktop Tax Guide. And if it's not there, or if it's not current, meaning you didn't download it in the last month, go to retirementtaxservices.com and download the Desktop Tax Guide. This is a must-have resource for every financial advisor committed to tax planning.
Hold on before we go. Something that you need to know. This isn't tax, legal, or investment advice. That isn't our intent. Information designed to change lives. Financial planning can make you thrive. Start today, don't think twice. Be a better husband, father,